Conservation and Sustainability, presented by Dr. Shakila V., Director of the Community Agro-Biodiversity Center of MS Swaminathan Research Foundation in Wayanad. I, Dr. Rima Lobo, on behalf of the Departments of Zoology and Genetics, welcome you, ma'am. I also extend a warm welcome to our esteemed principal, Dr. Sister Lalita Thomas, and all the participants who have joined us today to make this event a great success. Our world has evolved without consideration for others, resulting in a loss of biodiversity, energy issues, and congestion in cities. When will we realize that collective human actions are transforming, even ravaging the biosphere, perhaps irreversibly, through global warming and loss of biodiversity? Today, as we embark on the journey to raise awareness and learn what we can do to conserve biodiversity, I request our principal to begin the session by lighting the lamp. Thank you, sister and teachers. Let us pray. Thank you, God, for all the things you made our world to be. For every single living plant, insect, bird, and tree. Thank you, God, for all the people you have placed around us. For every single parent, friend, and teacher that we trust. Thank you, Lord, for all the gifts you send to us each day. For every single meal and snack, for cuddles, toys, and play. Thank you, God, for caring for us. We know you always see our every deed, our worries, cares, our laughter, joys, and tears. Thank you, Lord, that you are our friend. You delight in all we do, especially when you hear our prayers and we give thanks to you. Amen. An investment in knowledge always pays the best interest, said Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the United States of America. And we know that the foremost source of knowledge is nothing but experience. I now request our principal, Dr. Sister Lalita Thomas, to share some of her immeasurable knowledge with us. Over to you, sister.
Good morning to my dear friends, and welcome to our participants and our resource person, Dr. Shakila. At the outset, I must really appreciate the Department of Zoology and Genetics for organizing a session on a theme so relevant for us today. Biodiversity, conservation, and sustainability is the need of the hour, and our students need to be taught to appreciate, and also must be provided with hands-on experience with regard to tips that will be useful for them to really conserve and sustain our earth. As beautifully said in the prayer, I really thank God for providing us with such variety of rich biodiversity. We are so blessed with such a beautiful earth with hues of colors, none repeating. So unique, so different, so beautiful, so amazing. And our day begins with our sun rising and greeting us, giving us life, light, joy. So Earth beckons every day to celebrate our life, and our well-being is intimately linked with our biodiversity. If that is so, how much we need to thank God and revere and take care of our Earth. Yesterday, when Dr. Sitavi invited me for this session, I said, I'm happy to come. I'll bring all the animals with me, I said. And in the prayer already, some of them were mentioned. And this morning, as I was walking on our ground, I was simply, much more than any other day today, I was simply awakened to the beauty of the blade of grass, the tiny little flowers, and the ants and creatures, so very cute and beautiful. And they simply bring you joy, help you relax, and get connected with the earth, which sustains and provides everything to us. Our basic needs are met from our earth: shelter, clothing, everything. So we so much depend on our earth. And today, as I said, I will bring the animals, but I have brought only one today to share with you. And I think all of you are very familiar with it. Our friend, the squirrel. The squirrel, for me personally, has a huge, big lesson to teach us by its way of life. If you watch them, they are all the time busy running around and then nibbling the nuts. And these squirrels, they have a very peculiar behavior and a unique behavior. They start during the chill season collecting nuts and burying them in the ground. And studies also shown that some of these squirrels also change their places of hiding nuts now and then. Regularly they keep changing the place because they said maybe to help themselves remember where they have hidden these nuts, and so that in time of the cold season that they can really live on the nuts that have buried. But then it is said that all the nuts that are buried by the squirrel are not eaten by the squirrels themselves. Many of these nuts are left there, and these nuts grow into trees. And our forest is sustained, conserved with this little unique behavior of our friend squirrel, making our lives so beautiful and rich. So let us learn from our Mother Earth to live, to celebrate life, to care, and to be responsible with the way that we use the given blessings of God and not abuse the nature, not exploit the nature. Instead, be a friend and enhance our well-being by taking care of our. I'm sure Dr. Shakila will give you useful tips through her insightful talks that will help us to learn clearly, to make our life relevant today with the ways in which we will conserve and sustain our earth. My dear friends, have a wonderful session today. And Dr. Shakila, thank you for being with us. God bless us.
Thank you, dear sister. Surely, protecting our green earth is the need of the hour. I now request Mrs. Geeta Matthew, Dean of Life Sciences and Coordinator of the Departments of Zoology and Genetics, to introduce our esteemed speaker and welcome her.
A very good morning to all who are present in this webinar. First, let me thank our principals, Dr. Sister Lalita, for her beautiful message and her presence here in spite of her busy schedule. Thank you, sister. Today, our speaker for the day, Dr. Shakila V, is an entomologist by training and currently serving as Director of Community Agro Biodiversity Center. Ma'am has over 18 years of experience in research and development of eco-friendly products as a part of IPM services, and has worked extensively on IPM as a tool for sustainable agriculture. Dr. Shakila has worked as HOD Urban Entomology for the last 7 years and has developed the lab infrastructure and imparted in-depth training to scientific and non-scientific staff. Ma'am has performed product testing and evaluation using different insect systems under controlled, simulated, and field conditions. Ma'am is also adept at statistical analysis of experimental data and worked extensively on development and validation of physical traps for insects and other pests. Ma'am has successfully developed 5 insect attractant bait formulations. At present, Dr. Shakila is creating databases for 1,000 specimens which was collected. We are indeed blessed to have such an experienced person among us today. Welcome to this webinar, ma'am. A gentle reminder to the participants to post your queries in the chat box, which will be answered later. Over to you, Dr. Shakila.
Very good morning to all, one and all, and a warm thanks from gratitude from my side, all of the speakers, and the beautiful introduction they have given. And I would like to extend my gratitude, giving an opportunity to interact with the students and the staff of Biology and Genetics Department. Jyoti Nivas College. This is the first time I'm college students, but we had different kinds of interactions with scientific and non-scientific community. But this is after some time I'm having the students back. I'm happy to be with this. My screen is visible to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So today's topic is biodiversity conservation and sustainability. So when we mentioned in the opening remark, Dr. Rima and our respected principal, Dr. Sister Lalita has very beautifully spoke about the biodiversity and the importance of essence of biodiversity to our planet. So biodiversity, actually, it is the life insurance for our changing world. So that is in one sentence we can say. Let us see what is biodiversity. Biodiversity simply means it is to be different or unlike. It is not the same. So there are different plants and animals living on our planet. So that is the diversity of our planet. And then biodiversity is the variety of life forms in a given region, the ecological role they perform, and the genetic diversity they contain. So, and biodiversity is at 3 levels actually, that is at habitat, species, and genetic diversity. This is the biodiversity is the variety of all forms of life throughout the ecosystem, and high rates of extinction are quickly reducing our biodiversity, especially in areas of the world with high human population density and growth. Especially in tropical regions, we are facing the high rate of extinction and biodegradation. The direct and indirect effects that humans have had on biodiversity is challenging. Because of the human intervention, the biodiversity is fastly receding, And in this way, we are proceeding. The way we are utilizing the biodiversity, the resources of the planet, then we need another 2 planets to survive. So that is the way the scientists have put it across. So we understand the critical nature of our interventions to our planet Earth. Now let us look at the elements of biodiversity. The predicted number of total species of the Earth, of our planet Earth, it varies from 5 to 50 million and averages at 14 million. So these many species of plants and animals are there on our Earth. Out of the total known species, about 60% are insects. That is the maximum proportion consists of insects, and 16% are higher plants, and only about 0.3% is mammals. The most unique feature of our Earth is the existence of life, and the most extraordinary feature of life is its diversity. So biodiversity is normally treated in terms of genes, species, and ecosystems, in correspondence with 3 fundamental hierarchical levels of biological organization. So these are genetic, species, and ecosystem diversity. Now, genetic diversity is the diversity within a species at genetic level. So these are the 3 levels you can see: the genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity. And the fourth, there is another level of diversity, that is the landscape, the heterogeneous land area composed of cluster of interacting ecosystem. That a mosaic of heterogeneous landforms or vegetation types and land uses that constitute the 4th form of biodiversity. So in a species, within the species is genetic diversity. You can observe the genetic diversity within the species, and in between the species is species diversity, because we know different species are there. They are different from each other. They don't reproduce among species. So that is the level of species diversity. And at the 3rd level is the ecological diversity, that is the habitat level or ecosystem diversity. Now you can see at genetic diversity, this is you can see dog here, and there are different varieties of breeds of dogs that forms the genetic diversity. So that is variation within the species. And now when we look at the mangoes or any other fruit or any other vegetable, you find different varieties of the same fruit or vegetable. That makes the genetic diversity. That is because of the genetic difference, genetic makeup of that particular variety or breed. And then you can look at the species diversity, how the tiger is different from the grasshopper or a fish or a crocodile. So this is the species diversity what we see on our Earth. And then ecosystem diversity, there are different types of ecosystem, different habitats are there, and based on the habitats, the plants, and based on the habitat and the climatic conditions, the plants and animals evolve in that particular region. So the ecosystem diversity is tropical evergreen forest, moist deciduous forest, dry deciduous forests, and scrub jungles, sholas, savannas, and peat bogs, and meristica swamps. These are the different ecosystems or habitats. And then when we go to evergreen forest, that is the hotspot of biodiversity, evergreen forest. And these are the different types. You can see different types of ecosystem here. Scrub forest, shola usually found at 2000 meter altitude, and savanna and peat. These are the different types of ecosystems. Now, when we look at the soil is the most diverse component in our ecosystem, and it has various organisms, from microorganisms like bacteria, fungi, virus. Different organisms are there in the soil, and there are protozoans, nematodes, then springtails. You take just one handful of soil, it has lots of diversity. So the macrofauna like ants, termites, earthworms, these are all part of the soil ecosystem. And roots in the soil and their interaction with species above and below ground, that forms the interaction. and that makes a unique system. Now we'll look at the global biodiversity. The global biodiversity, the total estimated number of species on Earth is more than 10 million. And out of the 10 million, only 1.8 million species are described, and species undescribed, still not described, are 8.2 million. So more than 50% of land species identified and unidentified. They live in the tropical moist forest. Now we look at the number of living species, all organisms, living species of all organisms currently known. So you can see 7,51,000. It is insects forms the maximum with 7,51,000, and higher plants. The next comes other animals, which is 2,81,000, and then higher plants 2,48,000. And other Monera, bacteria, and other forms are forming 4,800. And you can see viruses, protozoa. These are all part of the our living species. And higher plants. Now we take up higher plants, only the higher plants. When then you look at the higher plants, the number of living species of higher plants, they are dicots are 1,70,000 and monocots around 50,000, and others are smaller groups, gymnosperms, ferns, and bryophytes. Now there are biodiversity hotspots in the world. So there are 36 hotspots in the world. These are there are certain criteria how to identify mega biodiversity hotspots. So based on the criteria, there are 36 hotspots in the in our world. So distribution of biological species across the world differs, with some area having full of life and others without life. That's how it happens. So in if you compare Amazon rainforest and a desert, then you know the difference. In the rainforest, the tropical rainforest has full of life. It has full of life. But whereas the desert areas, their diversity is less, and the number of animals or plants are very less. So that's how it is. It is not uniformly distributed all over the world. The diversity is not uniformly distributed, and there are many reasons, factors why it is so. So, but we have 36 mega biodiversity hotspots, and this can be defined as regions with large number of species in an ecosystem. And this concept was developed by scientist Norman Myers in 1988. And these are the richest and the most threatened reservoirs of plant and animal life on Earth. So places on Earth with some of the greatest biodiversity are South America, Equatorial Africa, India, Indonesia, and coastal areas. And these regions also show greatest density and fastest rate of growth of people. So because of this fastest growth of people, the biodiversity is under threat. Now these are the 36 biodiversity hotspots in the world. And these are only, these biodiversity hotspots make only 1.4% of land. It was actually 12% of land, but now it has reduced to just 1.4% of land. But they are home to 60% of our Earth's plant, bird, mammal, and reptile species. Now, mega centers of biodiversity in India. So India is a hotspot, a biodiversity hotspot. It's a tropical region, and there are 4 biodiversity hotspots in India. They are Eastern Himalaya, Western Ghats, and Western Himalaya. And India's heritage, when you look at India's heritage, it has a long history and it has a unique geography. And the heritage is very ancient, and great diversity we observe in cultural practices, languages, religions, and climate across our country. And Western Ghats is the hotspot of biological diversity in the southern India. So it extends over a length of 1,500 kilometers from Maharashtra to the Tamil Nadu. And it has been UN Heritage Biodiversity Heritage Spot. It has been identified as. And these are the biogeographic provinces in India, different Trans-Himalaya, Himalaya, then Eastern Himalaya, deserts are there, arid zones are there, and Gangetic Plain and Deccan Plateau, Western Ghats, coastal area, and islands. These are the different biogeographic provinces in India. So, the land of great, India is the land of great natural diversity. It harbors over 1,25,000 described living organisms, and another 3 to 5 lakh are waiting to be described. So the hotspot, you can understand the biodiversity richness of our country. India's biological diversity. You can take a quick look at the India's biological diversity. It is plant diversity. When you look at it, it is 7% of world's biodiversity. India hosts the 7% of world's biodiversity. And in case of gymnosperms, it is 8.5%. And Pteridophyta, different groups are given. Now, let us look at what are the ecosystem goods and services provided by associated diversity. So how this diversity helps the human being and the planet. So the goods offered by ecosystem are food, freshwater, fuel, wood, fiber, and the biochemicals. These are the different goods obtained from the biodiversity. And services are the benefits people obtain from regulation of ecosystem processes, that is climate resilience, disease, hydrological regime, detoxification. These are the services offered by our biodiversity. So without biodiversity, without the plants and animals around us, we cannot survive without them. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, you're audible.
I'm having some, actually, I'm able to hear. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. There is some disturbance I'm hearing. Maybe
No, it's quite clear, ma'am. Your voice is audible.
Okay. Just 1 minute. Hello. Did you now? Hello. Hello.
Ma'am, your mic is on mute.
Okay. Sorry. Some disturbance. I was unable to.
It's all fine from our side, ma'am. There's no disturbance.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll continue. Now the
Ma'am, your camera is off.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. You're visible. You can continue.
Sorry for the. So these are the services we are getting from the biodiversity. So these biologically generated services are largely considered to be free. So there is no cost attached to it. So we are getting it free of cost from our nature. And this has to be, it is rarely included in analysis of economic benefits to agriculture. So without this diversity, agriculture would not have been possible. So all the crops what we grow now is from the biodiversity existing from our existing on our earth, and different crop management practices are being followed. Now, the case of associated biodiversity in agricultural systems. However, it can and it should be valued. That is the benefits to be quantified. So we don't know what are the benefits of the biodiversity, and hence we are unable to measure the benefits. So that's why we are not valuing it. So, and that has to be, these benefits have to be quantified, and we need to measure the impacts of our human intervention on the biodiversity and the erosion of biodiversity. So, for example, if you take pollination, without pollination, agriculture is impossible. So 75% of the 80% of the crops are pollinated through pollinators. So without pollinator service, we cannot grow the crops on our planet. And similarly, the soil organisms, the different microbes present in the soil that provide a lot of ecosystem services like nutrient cycling, decomposition, soil structure, and carbon sequestration and pest control. These are all different services. So these are the different services offered by the biodiversity. Now, when we go to, it is the consumptive and productive uses of soil biota. Indirect uses for food and provisioning. Compost of, you can see this, they have different manifold uses of this soil biota. So it is starting from food for backyard animals, and then manure piles for compost production. So everywhere the microbes are required, and even for the growth of the plants, microbes are required. So, and fire smoke, these are the edible ants and fishing baits, and everywhere the microbiota, we utilize the microbiota. Then this is the characteristic, diversity is the characteristic of nature, and it is the base of ecosystem stability. If we don't have the diversity, then that particular ecosystem, if the diversity is less, the particular ecosystem will not be stable. So a lot of networking among the plants and animal species in the habitat is required to make the system stable. So that's why the very important, the diversity is the important characteristic for a sustainable ecosystem. And this co-evolution of cultures, life forms, and habitats has conserved the biodiversity on Earth. When we go to the tribal areas, we understand the way how they lead their life, which is in completely harmony with the nature. But as we are progressing towards urbanization and industrialization, we have lost the harmony with nature, and the indigenous people still they are trying to live in harmony with nature. When Wayanad, where I am sitting, actually our organization in Kerala is located in Wayanad, which is where this is an aspirational district of Kerala state, and where this tribal population is maximum in the state. So it is 8% of the population is tribal, and the way they live is completely in harmony with nature. And when we go and see their traditional knowledge for let it be medicinal or food or agriculture, it is amazing. And those traditional knowledge are to be recorded, and they have to be conserved so that we can make a sustainable system. Actually, their lifestyle is much sustainable than the lifestyle we are following. So the medicines what they use, they don't take completely, not that completely they are away from the modern medicine, but the day-to-day ailments, they don't go for a doctor or they don't approach the medical shop. Whereas they take their own plants and food as medicines. So that's how it is beautiful. And the cultural diversity and biodiversity, they go hand in hand, especially in case of indigenous peoples. So the world over, the indigenous food system is coming back, and the UN, it is leading the World Food Summit, and it is to bring back the indigenous food system. They're trying to bring back the indigenous food system by understanding the importance and the goodness of the original food system what we had. So our society cannot exist without biodiversity. That is the essence of it actually. Without biodiversity, then humans cannot survive. And now we will look at the threats to biodiversity. What are the threats? Why this biodiversity is eroding? So extinction is a natural event. So from geographical ages, we can see extinction is a natural event. So most species have gone extinct. Many of the species have gone extinct. But the average extinction rate over the past 200 million years is 1 to 2 species per year they're being extinct, and 3 to 4 families per million year. And average duration of a species is 2 to 10 million years. So within that period, the species can be extinct. So incidents of mass extinction driven by climatic factors are also there. That in case of dinosaurs, the extinction of dinosaurs is caused by different factors like this, and habitat destruction directly caused by humans, as well as the destruction due to climate change, are the leading main causes of increasing extinction of Earth's species. And these are the causes of animal extinctions. When we look at animals as a different group, then these are the different causes of animal extinction. That is new species introduction, that we call it as invasive species, alien species introduction to the ecosystem. That erodes the original population or the endemic population. That is one reason. And then habitat destruction, naturally habitat destruction. Once the habitat is not conducive for the species to live in, then naturally these species slowly they recedes and they become less in number, and then slowly they go under extinction. And hunting is one of the major reason. Earlier, this was the one major reason for animal extinction. And now we are looking at conservation of biodiversity. What is the why the conservation of biodiversity is important, and what are the strategies that can be used for conserving the biodiversity? So conservation is defined as it is the management of biosphere so that it may yield sustainable benefit to the present generation while maintaining its potential to meet the needs and aspirations of the future generation. That is the conservation. That's how conservation is positioned. And there are two basic strategies for biodiversity conservation. That is in situ, which is on site. That is in their own habitat. Suppose a plant is under a threat, then that plant can be conserved in its own habitat in a forest. So that can be identified and it can be conserved there. And ex situ means off-site, not in the same area, but in outside the forest area, we can conserve the same species which is facing the threat, like botanical gardens and other areas, sanctuaries. So these are the in situ and ex situ biodiversity conservation. In situ is protected areas, natural forest, national parks, sanctuaries, biosphere reserves. These are the in situ areas of conservation. And sacred forests and lakes. These are also natural areas. So these are they are listed under in situ conservation. And ex situ conservation is man-made. We are trying to conserve the plants and animals outside their habitat. That is seed banks, gene banks, and long-term captive breeding, animal transactions, then tissue culture benefits, then cryopreservation of gametes, and botanical gardens and zoological gardens or zoos. These are the different ex situ methods of cultivation, conservation. Now, there are certain steps in conservation process, which is inventorying. That means we need to inventory the area and the species, what all species are available in a particular area, and what is the population size, and based on which we need to take steps whether to conserve or not. So that is inventorying is very important. Inventorying an area is very important. And then monitoring, we need to monitor the area over a period of time, how the population fluctuation happens in that particular area. And then documentation of traditional knowledge, that is another important aspect of conservation. And then we go for conservation in situ or ex situ. So these are the steps in conservation process. And what the need of conservation is, this enormous quantity of biological diversity that has to be inventoried and monitored and documented and conserved for their global, national, and local interest. Why we have to conserve is because we need, for future, we need these land races or wild crop varieties. So now the crop varieties are facing a lot of commonly used crop varieties are facing a lot of problems in terms of susceptibility to climatic changes and diseases, pests, and other factors. So once these crops, these common crops are gone away, then we will be left with no crop. So for that, we need to conserve the wild relatives of these crops, and these wild relatives are grown in biodiverse areas like tropical countries, and these are to be conserved. And this conservation, this will help us to ensure the food security for the future. Now, we have to, what is rationale behind this conservation? So it is the economic value. So we have, suppose we take care of medicinal plants. We get a lot of medicinal plants, but these are not completely utilized. We do not know the phytochemistry of the plants and how it has to be processed, and what are the benefits of these using these plant bioactive compounds. So these are to be preserved now, and so that we can do the research and we understand in the near future how it can be utilized for our own wellness and wellness of the human being. So environment, these are economic value, environmental value, and scientific value, then cultural and social value, and aesthetic value. These are all the different factors what we consider for the conservation, why the conservation becomes important. So now slowly the biodiversity, all of us know that biodiversity is being lost. Now we have different, came up with different policies and rules and regulations to conserve the biodiversity, but still it is not enough for us because these rules and regulations or the policies in place are not able to conserve the biodiversity, because maintaining biodiversity is a costly affair. So because without, we don't know the cost benefit ratio of maintaining a biodiversity, and without when we are without the biodiversity, or because when we know the pollinators are required for pollination, but their service cannot be, we have not costed their service. So that is why we don't know how much it will cost. So because of this biodiversity, we are unable to stop the biodiversity loss at a faster pace. So it is steadily decreasing. The biodiversity has steadily decreased from the beginning, from post-industrialization, this biodiversity decrease has happened. So you can see even the forest cover, everything, every biodiversity, aquatic biodiversity, terrestrial biodiversity, all forms of biodiversity is on the decrease. And now what are the reasons for concern? Why we are worried about the biodiversity loss? So decline in ecosystem services is the most important factor, which directly affects our agriculture and food, fiber or water, and the air. So these are the different services offered by the biodiversity which we are going to lose. Then it is impacting maximum on the poorest. The impact of biodiversity loss is on the poorest, because the poor people, the indigenous people, they go to the forest and they live depending on the forest and or on the biodiversity of that particular forest. So they go to they are hunterers. They live in the fringe areas of the forest, and they go to the forest and they collect the different products which is non-timber products like honey, different types of medicinal plants, and then wild food edibles. These are the things what they collect, and they that is their livelihood, and it forms their food also. So that is one important point. So as the biodiversity recedes, then they are left without any livelihood opportunity, and their food security is under threat. And the next point is a loss of resilience and shocks and surprises. Actually, this biodiversity loss, it causes climate change, and the resilience to climate changes. So with a lot of biodiversity, with a lot of agricultural crops in place, we are able to more than hybrid crops, the indigenous crops, the natural crops, which is prevalent in the area, local crops, that gives a lot of resilience to different climate change incidences, so that we are able to survive with less. And then loss of unique species and habitats. This is again a reason for concern, because a lot of species are under threat, and their habitats are also under threat. So this is again a different issue, a big issue in front of us. As we face loss in species and habitats, weakens our system, and slowly it weakens the planet. So these are the Sustainable Development Goals set by UN. So this is the international community which has set the Sustainable Development Goals. That is, there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and these more than half of these 17 development goals cannot be achieved without conserving the biodiversity. So the first goal is no poverty. So no poverty. For achieving this particular goal, we need biodiversity. Without biodiversity, we cannot achieve the no poverty goal at all. So there are different types of crops, and the wild relatives of the crops, and which are required to be conserved for the future food security. And then zero hunger. Again, the second point is zero hunger. So even though if carbohydrate-rich foods are available aplenty, but nutritionally we are poor. So the malnutrition is a major cause of concern, and this zero hunger cannot be achieved without our biodiversity. And good health and well-being, again, this is also related to interlinked to the biodiversity. And then you can see land climate action. Climate action definitely is linked to the biodiversity. Climate resilience is offered by different plants and animals, and without enough biodiversity with us, we cannot have the climate action in place. And life on water, life on earth, life on land. These are other two factors, two goals which are linked to our biodiversity. Now these goals have been adopted by international community and are expected to drive national development and international aid agencies until 2030. So we have kept a target timeline to 2030. So within 2030, we are trying to achieve these goals, 17 goals. These are the sustainable development goals. So to achieve these goals, we need biodiversity and it has to be conserved. And this agenda explicitly includes concerns about climate resilience, biodiversity loss, and sustainability of consumption, alongside issues of health, poverty, and education. So these are the different factors which are coming under this area, and these are interlinked with our biodiversity, and the biodiversity loss will lead to food security issues and health and poverty. And I would like to take few moments to introduce my organization to you. So this MSSRF was established around 30 years back by Professor M.S. Swaminathan, who is known as who is a well-known scientist in India as well as abroad, and he is known as father of Green Revolution. And he is the one who has received the first World Food Prize in 1987. And with that proceeds, he has started this organization in Chennai. It was started in Chennai, and different other states it was established to or extended to other neighboring states. And now we are there in 5 of the states. MSSRF is working in 5 of the states, and MSSRF main agenda is agro-biodiversity or biodiversity in a larger goal. It is biodiversity conservation and agriculture research. Actually, we are involved in agricultural research and harnessing science for development. That is the main aim of MSSRF. And we are striving towards to achieve the goals of SDGs or these development goals by way of our humble efforts and different many biotechnological areas like developing new crops and the crops which are resilient to or tolerant to salt tolerance or drought tolerance. These crops are being developed, and salt-tolerant rice varieties have been developed, and it is under experimentation in Orissa and Tamil Nadu region. So, and in addition to that, biodiversity conservation. Under biodiversity conservation, around 150 species of rare, endangered, threatened species of Western Ghats have been conserved, and in situ as well as ex situ conservation. We are involved in the in situ as well as ex situ conservation. As part of ex situ conservation, we have a botanical garden developed in Wayanad area, in Wayanad campus, and this botanical garden has 1,500 species of plants and other related biodiversity of insects and birds and other animals. And other than this, we are working with the smallholder farmers, and we are reaching the technology to the smallholder farmers for their benefit of for increasing their income from the farming practices. And this is another side of the MSSRF. And also MSSRF is involved with education programs, and because as we are working with marginalized societies in different states like Wayanad or Orissa, where the tribals are proportion of tribals are more. We are working with the tribal communities of Orissa, Tamil Nadu and Kerala. So here we are working with we are involved with education of, because the education is important for improving their lives and livelihoods. And in this area also we are involved. These are the different verticals MSSRF is working on, and we have conservatories, genome conservatories are there, and plus we have seed villages, which is with community participation. Seed banks have been working in Wayanad and Orissa. So where the farmers are able to conserve their seeds, their local indigenous varieties of rice and other pulses and other crops, and they are able to conserve, and they are able to exchange through exchange program. They promote their cultivation. So these are the different areas we are working on. With this, I would like to stop here, and you can have any queries or clarifications. You can discuss here. We can make it an informal discussion. You can raise your queries and doubts. And I would like to again thank the Jyoti Nivas College for offering me an opportunity, for MSSRF an opportunity to come and interact with the student community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for such a wonderful session. Now I request second year degree students, please proceed to a next hour. Final year students can be back here. Ma'am, shall we move on to the question and answer session?
Hello.
Ma'am, I'll read out the questions for you.
Okay.
You can just answer it, ma'am.
Yeah, please.
The first question is, ma'am, could you please comment on the effect of GM crops on biodiversity?
Yeah. GM crop in case of India, in the context of India, GM crops for only GM crop, cotton as a GM crop, we have provision is there. Provision of GM cotton is available, whereas other GM crops are not allowed in India. But these GM crops, we do not know. The problem is that the cotton, the GM, in case of cotton, the cotton is able to resist the insect attack, the bollworm attack. That is the thing what we have achieved by through the GM cotton. So this maybe long term, we do not know what is the impact of this cotton on other interlinked species. So that's why there could be some issue, and that is the reason GM crops are not introduced very heavily in India. Whereas we look at US, there are GM crops like maize. They have GM crops introduced in other places, other countries, but in India we haven't introduced yet. So it could be, we do not know, we are unable to understand the impact of this GM crops on other interlinked species, and it could lead to extinction of other species. It could lead to, we don't know the exact interaction. That is the reason there is some reservation on GM crops in India. That's what I understand. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. The next question is about COVID-19. How COVID-19 outbreak impacted the conservation of threatened species?
COVID-19 has impacted the threatened species. Could you please repeat it?
Yeah, during the lockdown time and all, there was nobody to protect the endangered species in natural parks and all that. Maybe the question, I feel, ma'am.
Okay. Actually, during the lockdown period, the world over, the environment has improved because many industries were all under lockdown and the pollution was under control and the skies have become clear, and that's what we heard from during the time, right? We heard that a lot of wild animals reappeared during the period because the human interventions were less, and we were all restricted to our own household. So that COVID-19 actually did not have an impact on any threatened species, because these threatened species are not to be taken care daily. So that as such, COVID-19 lockdown hasn't impacted the threatened species, but it has improved overall it has improved the environmental conditions, which many birds were reappeared and many amphibians were noted. So we have seen that kind of news coming in during the period. But COVID-19, actually the virus has jumped from the animal to human. That is due to the some kind of biodiversity imbalance. Because if enough biodiversity was there, if they were allowed to live in their own habitat, this would not have happened. So we can expect in coming future, we can expect many such pandemics can be expected. So that is one. This is one clear indication of losing biodiversity. So that is a threat actually.
Yes, ma'am. The next question is, can you give a few suggestions how we can transform from an intensive agriculture to a sustainable agriculture?
Yeah. So this is actually a lot of farmers and other groups are there. They are going forward with natural farming rather than intensive agriculture. So this intensive aggressive agriculture has eroded the soil with its nutrient and other soil nutrient and soil texture. So we are using a lot of chemicals, pesticides and fertilizers, which has impacted the environment and human health. So we are going so that natural farming or organic farming is picking up, and people are going for it, and we are trying to popularize it. But the problem is that the scale is right now it is low, and people are farmers are finding it difficult to continue with organic farming because of the cost involved in it, because there is no subsidy applied to the organic farming like biopesticides or other biomolecules used by farmers are not under subsidized rate, but whereas the chemical fertilizers are subsidized, and hence the conventional agriculture is cheaper than the organic agriculture or natural farming. So that's how this conventional agriculture, we are unable to compete with the conventional agriculture in terms of cost. So if the government has to actually intervene here, and subsidies are to be brought in for natural farming so that people can go for natural farming, and lot of research also required to enhance the yield of natural farming. So when we go for natural farming with natural varieties of crops, the yield is actually a problem, whereas the crop varieties are able to survive or able to tolerate the insects and pest diseases and pests, but the yield becomes a problem. So yield is less compared to the hybrid varieties. So we need to have enough research to be undertaken to enhance the yield of natural varieties. Yeah.
In the interest of time, we are stopping the question and answer session now. If there are any more queries, you can please post to us, and we will make sure you get a response from Dr. Shakila. Thank you, Dr. Shakila, for your valuable session, and Dr. Soumya for moderating the question and answer session. The fastest way to feel happiness is to practice gratitude. Hence, I call upon Dr. Neetu BK to express our joy at the successful conclusion of the webinar with a formal vote of thanks.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great opportunity for me to be a part of this webinar, which has helped all of us to understand the broad spectrum of biodiversity. I express my sincere gratitude to our Honorable Speaker, Dr. Shakila V., Director at MS Swaminathan Research Institute. Her presence has brought spark in us today. Her dedication and passion towards research has created impact on us. Today's talk gave deep insights into the deep topic and has enlightened us the interesting facts regarding the conservation of biodiversity and its sustainability. Through your presentation, we have understood the importance of genetic variations, megadiversity, conservation of biodiversity. I thank you, Manu, once again for sharing your expertise. On behalf of Chief Patron, Principal Dr. Sister Lalita Thomas and colleagues of Jyotinivas College, I express my gratitude to all esteemed delegates of the webinar for their presence and contribution to make this webinar a great success. Our heartfelt thanks to JNC technical team for their cooperation. Thank you all once again. Dear participants, you will be provided a feedback link. After submitting it, you will receive your e-certificate to the registered mail within 10 days. Thank you.
Dear participants, the feedback link is given in the question answer chat box. Please respond to that.